Welcome back, Action Takers. My name's Mark. This is the After Hours Entrepreneur, and today we're joined by Jeff McKinnon. He is the co-founder and co-CEO of The.com. And today's episode is all about web design. It's about building out a website that works, different innovations in the field. And, Jeff's story, we get a little bit technical, but Jeff's story is, I think, really important. His journey from college to entrepreneurship, cutting lawns at 15 and how that has impacted what he's doing now, raising capital. And I think the importance of automation, I've been really seriously thinking about automation across all different forms and websites. And, that's really what my business, podcast producing, is all about. It's how do I automate more? And I think that as we move into this Web3 world, as we implement new technology, new AI, automation is so important. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode with Jeff today. Sit back, relax. We're going to learn a little bit about web design, best practices, and how to automate more. I think you're going to love this episode with Jeff. Super inspirational, very impressive dude. Let's get into this episode. DJ, run the tape. Yo, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, Jeff, pleasure's all mine. Super cool business, by the way, that you've built. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more about The.com, how it automates website building, why that's important. But I want to kind of go back in time. I want to start, as all the After Hours entrepreneurs understand, we all start somewhere. So take me back.
Got to.
Take me back, Jeff. Take me back to your first business, age 15. What did that look like?
Ooh, I had a couple when I was 15. Had to have the lawn mowing side hustle. I mean, that was number one. If you could afford a lawnmower, your dad had one that he'd let you borrow and used on 20 other people's lawns without killing you, you were doing all right. Always did that stuff. I think those early days, I also got in trouble at school for slinging Pokemon cards, honestly. And they were threatening to suspend me because I was making money at it. And they were like, you can't be selling stuff to other students.
That's great. Selling Charizards.
Oh yeah. And they weren't even real cards. I was printing out photos, just super high res photos of the cards pretty much. And people were, that was back when, I'm not that old, I'm 32, but it's, back when super high res, photo printing was just coming out. And my dad was an entrepreneur as well. And we were able to have some really nice equipment at the house from his business. So, cause he kind of worked from home. My brother and I, who co-founded the company with me, we both had little businesses like that. It's awesome. I'm
curious, did your dad, did he really push you into the entrepreneurial type of endeavors, or did he say, hey, you got to go to college, you got to get a job? How did he kind of guide your way to becoming an entrepreneur, Jeff?
Yeah, he did not at all push us anywhere. He was kind of a hippie, loved the Grateful Dead. He still is and still does. And he always asked us, he always just let us do whatever we wanted in terms of, go be a founder, go work, in finance, go do something and, keep cutting lawns if you want. That's whatever. He was very much so, and still is, a person that just wants us to be happy. So, but my brother and I, Clark and I, had, crazy drive. We had a family of entrepreneurs and he did well. And our grandfather was able to move up from the mailroom to CEO of the whole floor of the Chrysler building in New York. And so, technically not an entrepreneur, but when you think about it, kind of. So we just had that drive to kind of follow in our fathers and our grandfather's footsteps.
That's cool. And the reason I ask that, Jeff, is I sometimes wonder or ponder or think, is entrepreneurship genetic? Is it built into certain people? Because my father was a business owner and I was always an employee. I was never an employer. I've just recently made that transition. And so I wonder, do you feel like it's genetic, or do you feel like you just had that drive? Where do you think that comes from? Help me here.
It's a tough call. I don't think it's genetic, because I think anyone can kind of get motivated to do something incredible. And it's just really it's more about the drive and the grit of the hard work and being told no a million times too, and having that kind of gusto to be well, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway, whether you think I can't. But I also know that, that you get a lot of no's. So there is definitely a character trait that just allows you, whether for better or for worse, right, to just ignore the no's and ignore the people saying you can't do this and you can't accomplish that, and that thing will never work and it's a terrible idea. And generally what we found out over the years is It's the people who wish they were in the situation you were, fighting extra hard, that say no to you because they're the ones that couldn't either do it themselves or they don't understand the business. And usually, I mean, what you're doing with podcasts and what you said, like your dad probably did, is it's something that you know really well, and you did it on your own, and you found a niche or an area where there's, you know, multiple people asking for that, whether it's a SaaS business or, you know, services business.
You bring up a really interesting point too, Jeff, I think, about internalizing the no and kind of using that as like a driver. You know, one of the things I find young entrepreneurs and podcasters really struggle with is that feeling of imposter syndrome. And
oh, yeah.
Especially when you're starting out, there's no end to the people that tell you you're doing the wrong thing or you're on the wrong path or no, you can't cut my lawn, kid, get out of here. Right? How did you, 100%. And I actually read through this in Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week. I thought that was one of the really important concepts of getting comfortable with discomfort. How did you handle that, Jeff? How do you handle getting past all those no's and all those doubters?
Yeah, I mean, I think my brother and I love Kanye West, and we love one of his main lyrics is he says, "I never take advice from people less successful than me." So I think that's number one that we live by, because I would say you tend to get a ton of advice from people who are not working as hard or trying as hard or even going out on a limb, right? And then the people that are much more successful than you, you know, you just got to surround yourself with the people that, even if they do say no, generally the smart ones will tell you, hey, I could be full of shit. I could be totally wrong here, but this is what I would do. And they're never telling you necessarily no. They're usually saying, this is what I would do. I could be completely wrong. And I think those are the people you got to surround yourself with, because generally in our experience, those are the ones that are incredibly successful and probably the goal that most people are trying to get to in their lives and their career.
100%. I love that thought, Jeff, about look at the people who are actually telling you no. Look at those quote unquote influences that are telling you it's a bad idea. Where are they at? Exactly.
You got to take all of their experience into account and say, like, do I want to be like that person, or do I want to be like the person that, you know, started $2 billion companies in one lifetime? And that was one of the reasons we ended up raising from the fund that we really respected called NFX. And NFX was James Currier, Pete Flint, Gigi Weiss, like Morgan Beller, people that have really just, I mean, Pete Flint started True, which was only one of his multi-billion-dollar businesses he started. And James is effectively the early inventor of a lot of social media in the late 90s, early 2000s, and, you know, has worked ever since as a product person. And the reason I bring that up is because generally you're getting this advice and this feedback from people who are just completely not related to the thing you're working on. And so you have to take that into account for sure.
So I definitely want to talk about this topic about getting people to believe in you, raise money. Before I get into that specific question, I want to ask, Jeff, did you find it easier to find and land people to donate and bring capital to your project? Or did you find it easier to sell your first lawn mowing job? Which one was harder? Which one was easier?
Lawn mowing was way easier, I have to say, because the lawn was growing and they needed someone to cut it. They didn't really care who did it. And if it happened to be the kid next door, even easier, because you can just call them up and they'll be there in 10 minutes. But, you know, selling and working with these VCs, pitching angel investors, you're pitching them on a vision that may be 5 years away. And so there's a lot of things that you have to internalize and you know, have a lot of confidence towards in your vision. And generally with us, we were super confident because we built thousands of our specific industry for the listeners is website development and automation and things like that. We built thousands of websites as an agency, in a marketing agency, a web development agency before this business. So we had insane amounts of context. And that's what I was kind of mentioning before about kind of like know your history and the reason that you believe an idea to be a good idea or a vision to be kind of what you see the future of the industry being. Whereas people who say, you know, we got plenty of no's, we definitely got a majority of pitches were no's. And all those people don't understand because they never built a site. They never lived that life. And so that's where you got to really take those no's and be like, it makes sense. Some of those people said no. That actually is a positive that some of those people say no, because they have no clue what they're talking about. So if they said yes, I'd be worried.
Fair enough. You definitely need to be in front of the right people, especially if you're raising capital. You need the right investors. Kevin O'Leary, love you, but you might not be the best fit for that, 15-year-old girl who's trying to sell muffins on the side of the road.
Well, he will, but he'll take 1 cent until he recoups his money.
Right. I need the royalty. I love it.
Yeah.
You got to love that. So I want to talk a little bit more about your business before we start talking a little bit more about how to get in front of the right people, because I think those are two really important points. Okay. So why don't you just briefly explain, Jeff, what is the.com, THE.com? What do you do? What is this business?
Great question. Yeah, the .com has a bunch of different use cases across the web development industry. The platform itself is the backbone of the actual company. It's a web development platform. It can be used as a CMS. It's fully managed in the cloud. So there's the hostings included, the deployment, the custom domains, the SSLs, the backups, the security. It's also built on a very robust infrastructure called serverless technology that allows it to load faster than any other platform. And the unique thing about it, and what all the VCs that we worked with believed in, was it's not a drag and drop editor like most platforms like Squarespace and Wix. Those are great platforms. They're built for the one-off use case generally. You're one person building one site one time. Mm-hmm. The .com is built around the idea that data is what's most important when working with a site. And that has to do with the code itself. That has to do with the content from the marketing person, from the business owner, all of those things. And so the .com is actually set up like a table or like a spreadsheet. And that allows you to create these variable instances that will allow different stakeholders the ability to edit the site and work with data and content in their own kind of like preferable environment. Like, let's say an Airtable or a Google Sheet or a Notion database.
Is this like kind of like Wikipedia, where it's like all the many different people are contributing to the designing and the building of the website? Am I hearing you right?
So there is a really cool concept we added into the platform called blocks, and you can actually remix blocks. So that's if you were to create a part of your website that you thought you're really proud of, you built it really nicely, you can actually submit that to like a block feed where other people can take that information and then remix it into their sites and start editing it. So there is this idea of kind of like, and that's where it crosses over into some of the Web3 principles, kind of like composability and ownership. But, the rest of it's still very Web2, traditional web development, marketing sites, landing pages. You can build 1,000 pages or you can build one page with the .com.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to struggle with. Like, why would I, so I'll just give you an example, personal example. My first website was a Shopify website. Pretty simple. Like couple dozen pages, sold some merch. Cool. I'm hosted now through Bluehost. It's designed through Elementor. Pretty simple. Sure. Pretty simple. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Why would I need 1,000 websites? Why isn't one website not enough?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple interesting points in there. Mainly the fact that you building a site for yourself on your own, totally great to use all those platforms, but really the .com was created to help people build at scale. So from a website development perspective, that would be agencies, freelancers, people who make a living or a side hustle building websites. And the reason that the data first approach is so important for those people is because they're able to take what they've built in the past and reuse it. So that's one thing that's very hard to do with current platforms today is, hey man, I've already built this button. I've already built this section, this slider, this header, this footer, all those things. And I got it just the way I like to get it every time I build. And I don't want to have to ever redo that work again. So the .com allows you to transfer those blocks or small sections of websites to not only to the feed, like I talked about before, but to other sites you're working on. So you can effectively create your own, almost like GitHub repository of your own project work. And so it allows you to build faster and faster the more you build on the .com.
Kind of like a template, right? You can develop various templates for certain types of functions you might want to have on a website.
Exactly right. Except the nice thing about blocks versus templates, so templates are like an entire site.
Right.
And so when you're loading up a new Squarespace or a new Shopify template, they're effectively giving you tons of sections, tons of extra information that you don't need or don't want. It's also something you didn't build versus with the .com, you start to amass these blocks of specifically created things that you at your agency or your LLC and your freelancer job are able to say, I I like it built this way. I want the customer to be able to access the information via a Google Sheet in this very specific way. And I've already done that twice. So there's no reason for me to pull in this huge template every single time I create a new site.
That's the other thing that's interesting to me. You know, the way it looks like. So again, I'm just trying to pull all this together because there's so many different pieces to the way that this web design platform works, right? It says you can use Google Sheets, Google Forms, Typeforms, all these different softwares together to create this cohesive website. How do you bring those together though?
Great question. So one really cool thing that people love when they're using the .com is effectively the agency or the freelancer builds that site, let's say for your guys' company, the After Hours Entrepreneur, and you have an SEO person that's working on it, a consultant, and you have yourself that's editing the blog posts and uploading the podcast, and then you have another person that might be a graphic designer that's adding new images for the podcast pages. You can actually set that up using the data sets with the variables I mentioned, and you can have your editing source be a Google Sheet, where I like to just add my blog post in a Google Sheet. And then the SEO person might like to use Airtable to edit their SEO. All of those sources of data can be brought in simultaneously and pretty much feed the website in any way that the original creator sets it up.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me. I want to take this one level further, right? Because one of the things that I do in my business, I run a podcast production agency, is I have a client fill out a Google form, which starts several other automations. But if I'm hearing you correct, if a client finishes an episode of a podcast, they could fill out a Google form, and then that could actually update the website automatically. Is that
exactly right? Yeah. So it takes a lot of manual labor. We work with a lot of companies that get their information from their customers via Google form or an Airtable form. And then it goes into a Google Drive folder. And then they have to go in and manipulate the data, copy and paste it, move it around, add the photos and whatnot. With the .com, you could set the variables to flow directly into the page based on the information they're filling out when they hit submit.
I like that. I think Jeff as I was preparing for this episode, I was thinking like, how is this different from something else from the other options out there? But that automated factor I'm trying to automate everything nowadays.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we even touched on like some of the crazy automation shit that the .com offers now with the .com Automate, which is a sub-product on its own. So what we just talked about is effectively, because of our data-oriented system, setting up variables to feed data in from third-party platforms isn't really full automation. That's kind of just like variable editing. And we use Zapier because we love Zapier and those guys over there. So you can attach that to any platform. But the .com Automate itself is a whole new level of automation. And it kind of goes like crazy, when you think about it. Because at first, like your question before, I don't understand, why would I need 100 pages or 100 sites or 1,000 pages or 10,000 pages? It doesn't really make a ton of sense until you start digging into some of the use cases. And there's like this crazy like need for sites and pages. And so I'll quickly explain. The site side is actually pretty simple. Like we work with marketplaces, places that have like, let's say 20,000 plumbers, right? And they offer the plumbers, their profile page and their payment processing and their invoicing. But what they don't offer is the plumber to have johnsplumber.com. And we can actually take the data that those platforms already have in the profile, their logo, their hours, their location, their map, their reviews, and we can just port that data into a website automatically. So all of a sudden they just, $29 a month, they just say, sure, turn on a website for me. And the structure is all there because the company built the structure the way they want. And then all of a sudden the John's plumber guy, he's going to be able to get all that data sent in, and he has a site in 15 seconds and it's customized to that person.
So I guess my counter question here, Jeff, would be, doesn't that make life more complicated? Because it's hard enough running one website when there's updates and things needed. Like, what do I do if I have 1,000 websites and all of a sudden crash? I need to get them all updated. How does that work?
For sure. Well, the cool thing is the individual plumber in this use case would just go back and edit their profile that they always edit on this one company's website, like a labor marketplace, like call it Angie's List, right? They go into Angie's List, they update their logo. We got a new logo. And guess what? The site is managed already by that information that we call it like the single source of truth, right? The single source of data truth.
Well, it sounds kind of complicated. Do I need to be a coder to actually make this work? Or like, you know, cause I work with Zapier, a great program. Like you said, great program, I would say pretty simple to use. I'm pretty algebraically inclined, but pretty simple.
For sure. No, so the great thing about the automatic sites, and we haven't even gotten to pages yet, but with the automatic sites that we're talking about, that plumber person pretty much just clicks a button saying, yes, I want a site and I will pay the money for it. That's the only thing they ever touch. So it's actually a system. The automated sites is a system that the parent company or the marketplace company, the aggregator, they're the ones that set everything up, and they only need to set it up one time, and then they connect it to their system and they say, all right, new button just appeared or a new email came out. Do you want to turn on your site automatically? And that way no one's paying for sites that aren't being used, which we've talked to company owners in the past that have unfortunately failed when they tried to pre-spin up all these customers' websites, and then the bill was insane and no one was buying it because it looked fake, because how did you spin one up for me without me asking, versus this new way of going about it, which is we have your information, you update it regularly. We can even pull it from Google if we wanted to, and you can say, activate my website. And so the plumber person or whomever it may be never even needs to touch anything to do with the website. They're just constantly updating that source of data, which happens in this case to be the marketplace platform that they came from.
Super gnarly, dude. Super gnarly. I'm just, it's such a cool idea, you know, cause you know what this kind of reminds me of, and I don't want to go way down off this tangent, cause I know people kind of, their eyes glaze over when I use the word NFTs, but you know, a lot of NFT art is not actually art. It's just a bunch of numbers and codes that delivers that piece of art. This kind of reminds me of those concepts. Do you see those similarities also? Was that an impetus at all?
Yeah, we built the blocks to effectively track, and when they get manipulated, kind of like NFTs, so that they can track the original ownership of that. But I do see what you're saying in terms of effectively people set in 20 different variables, and then they say multiply that times every combination, that equals 10,000. And now you have 10,000 NFTs. And that's what a lot of those famous companies like Bored Apes and whatnot were able to do. They didn't actually hand draw all those different variations. And so from that perspective, it's very similar, where they said, here's a data set, one hat, one style of mouth, one style of eyes. And then we want to they randomly generate that stuff, versus at the .com, it's very much the companies using Automate are very much so directing that data specifically to where it should live on the website.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I just have to call attention to this. The website is the.com. That's THE.com. And is someone someone who has set up quite a few websites. Every single domain out there is already taken. Spoiler alert. Whatever website you want, it's already taken. How the heck did you get the.com?
You know, it's kind of a serendipitous story. It actually found us. Clark and I were obsessed with this old building. The company started in Boulder, Colorado, and we were obsessed with this old building because we're from right near New Haven, Connecticut, and it's all old buildings out there. There's nothing that old right downtown Pearl Street in Boulder. And so there was this one building, and we wanted it really bad. And it took us forever to find the owner. He finally agreed to lease it to us. He's like, I don't understand why you want this thing. It's an old auto body shop. It hasn't been used since '82. It's full of trash, but sure, you guys can rent it from me. And so we rented it from him. We cleaned it out. We cleaned it up. And finally he came by and said, I don't understand why you guys wanted this so bad. What do you even do in here? And we were like, you know, this is the idea. This is the vision. And he pretty much goes, you know, it would be perfect for that. This domain name that I have.
No.
And it's the .com.
No way.
Yep. And so we worked together with him. He became a good friend and investor in the company, and kind of the rest is history. After he let us buy it from him, and off to the races.
Super cool. I just like it is, you know, when I think about like the hardest website name to get, that's probably it.
It is the most commonly used word in the English language. So it's probably the hardest URL to get. I mean, it's not a 2-letter URL, you know,
Fair.
But it's most 2-letter URLs aren't words. So
right.
I would say we definitely have the best word URL in the world.
Yeah. The.com. The website looks super cool too, which I'm assuming is also designed by the.com, right? The automate system.
That would be correct. But you would be surprised at the number of people that think it's built on a different software.
Right? You got to practice what you preach, baby.
100%. I mean, also, we want all the benefits that the .com offers. We want to be able to take sections of our site and give it to new customers that sign up. People come to us and they go, I love that section of your website. We go, boop, we'll turn it into a block and we'll send it to you. And it takes us 2 seconds.
Super cool. So, I want to talk a little bit about Web3 because that's fascinating to me. I want to keep that super simple, though. I don't want to overwhelm people, but I do, before I move on to that topic, I do just kind of want to ask you, Jeff, like, what was the hardest part in building out this project from conception to live? What was the hardest part of that process for you?
I mean, it's an incredibly complex build because anytime you're using a web app to build other web apps, there's a lot of crazy things that our amazing development team has to keep in their head at any one time, because you can't really write down that easily how two things connect in a system that's producing websites, right? Because you're effectively using a website to build another website. And so there's a lot of complexity that's involved in creating something like that. There's also a lot of mental energy that it takes to figure out, oh, what if someone clicks over here and then it shoots out this circular logic and everything crashes? Okay, well, we have to make sure that never happens and this never happened. We also wanted to give, the other reason we built this is because we felt so restricted. We were very design heavy, back-end coding heavy at our agency. And we wanted, when people said, can I add this little thing? And we had to say no, because it was on WordPress or Webflow. Not that those aren't great platforms. We just wanted more access to the code itself. But we weren't coders. We were marketers, effectively, and designers. And so we were like, can we just expose the code in a way that I understand? And a spreadsheet is very easy to understand because code is just data and data is just math effectively. And in the same way that you would set something equals to an Excel or a Google Sheet, you can inside the .com as well.
So it sounds like really that it was the actual building. It was constructing everything. But so how do you do that? If you and your co-founder are, marketers, how did you actually build that out? Did you have to go and hire like a bunch of web designers from India or the Philippines? How did you build out the actual product? Because that would be very expensive.
Yeah, it has been very expensive because we didn't go offshore at all with any of our development. Everything is built by people we were close with during our marketing and web design agency. We knew a lot of developers. We knew a lot of very talented developers. We got very lucky as well, I would say, with our head of engineering, Devin. She's incredible. We happened to know her through a friend of a friend in Boulder, and she was able to put together an incredible team. And so we were very lucky as non-technical founders, you could call us.
Brilliant. We talked a little bit about funding and raising capital before. Did you raise the cap? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Did you raise the capital first and then build it, or did you build it and then raise capital?
I can tell you we were able to put a proof of concept together without any capital because we owned 100% of this new idea. It's Clark and I. And so we were able to give away a little bit of equity early on to someone who is a friend of a friend, again, was our temporary, CTO, effectively, you could call this person. And we iterated hundreds of times with him over about 6-month period. And then once we got it to a place where we could start doing a pre-seed, we were able to raise about $1 million from friends and family in Boulder. That allowed us to actually get our first head of engineering. She came from Cloudflare, so we were able to get a ton of fantastic, DNS and website architecture knowledge from her, because Cloudflare is one of the leading platforms for any type of back-end web infrastructure. And then after that is when we met Devin, and Devin was able to start as just a regular engineer because we didn't need a head of engineering when you only had 3 engineers. And then we had 4, and then we had 5, and then we had 6. And then she was able to get promoted up to that title, which now we have about 14 people at the company, mostly engineers. And so to answer your question, incredibly expensive. And it's all people in the US, really. We wanted people to be able to come into office all the time. It was during COVID, so we didn't do a lot of in-office during that time. And we are a remote company right now, but we have 2 offices. People come to them all the time, once a month. And I think there's nothing that can really outdo the kind of brainstorming and the innovation that happens in person.
It sounds, as I listen to you talk, Jeff, it seems like a common thread is your network is your net worth. It's really the network of people and the credibility that you've built over the years. And probably a lot of that arose from your web design and web creation business, right?
Oh yeah.
When you were starting that business, did you ever think that it would grow into where you're at now and building out this website builder?
Definitely not. I mean, we were a services business, right? We were trading time for money, which is kind of the old adage of that's where you kind of got to start, but you don't necessarily have to end up there. And we had no clue that we would start selling a software product, that would eventually start becoming enterprise level and all these crazy things. So no, I mean, we just took it day by day. We love what we do. And Clark and I just loved helping. It was really about the small businesses, honestly, because we early on, before the agency, wanted to create this app that had to do with drinking beer because we were in college and we were like, how do we get to drink beer for free? How's that a tax write-off? And so we wanted to create this app that just, reviewed beer pretty much before like Untapped or any of those cool beer apps that help you, recognize the stuff that you like. And we were in Boulder in the mid 2000s, like 2012, when craft beer was blowing up there. So, and what happened was we couldn't get it made. We were in college. We got a couple quotes. We had one for 20 grand, one for 50, and one for 150 grand. We said, dude, I got about $150 in my account or less, honestly. So that's not happening. So what we ended up doing was teaching ourselves how to build a website to make it look like the app was coming soon. And that's kind of where it all started.
Ah, okay. So you kind of, it's all about kind of creating that vision for what is coming, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because to be honest, what we've learned is like to create a huge business, you definitely need people that believe in you and that monetary side of it as well.
Yeah. 100%.
And to the people that can bootstrap like to $1 billion business, like they're geniuses because they're able to turn the profit and pay their employees all with never raising capital. So I always envy those people as well. But there's also the side of it that comes with the advice that we get from these incredible operators that we work with at NFX and other VCs like Village Global and Sound Ventures and Ashton Kutcher and people like that who have incredible advice.
You mentioned Ashton Kutcher. I got to find out more about the name drop.
Yeah.
He's involved in this business also? He
is, yeah. He is one of the founders of Sound Ventures, and they're one of our bigger investors.
Super cool. Dude, where's my card? That's got to come somewhere.
Dude, where's my website?
I like that. Ashton, I want to see that. Super cool. So it's the.com. Jeff, I just want to hear a little bit from you. Again, I'm really fascinated in Web3, which to me is owning the internet. How do you see websites evolving over the next decade? Are they still going to look the same, or are they going to be completely different? Where do you see the internet going over the next decade?
There's a lot of cool things that we're trying to come up with internally that, because Web3 is actually so data oriented, the .com we think fits really well into what that story is going to be, because there is the ability, like you mentioned with NFTs, to almost randomize the variables. And we're really one of the great platforms that treats variables as the most important piece of the platform. And so I think there's some really cool stuff that we can see in the future. Websites will always be kind of like this brochure for the small companies, and we want to make sure that we're always supporting small business. But I think there's some really cool things that people will be able to experiment with. I mean, I mentioned Kanye earlier. He had some crazy like landscape 3D kind of website experience back in the day where you could kind of like walk further, deeper into the website and kind of like this 3D landscape, but you didn't need VR or AR. And then you start talking about VR and AR and like, how does that affect going to someone's website? And I think once Apple comes out with their Apple glasses, I think that'll be another transformative moment, just like Apple Watch and originally, obviously, iPhone. I think, I'm not quite sure, so don't quote me on this, but I remember something about how Steve used to say that, eventually you won't need the phone in your pocket, and then eventually you won't need the watch on your wrist, because the ability to just see what you're doing without interrupting, like, you'll have to look down at your phone and be like, let me hold on a second, I'm looking at my phone. But when you have glasses on, you'll be able to not break, your eye contact and continue what you were doing before. So I think that's going to have some really interesting aspects for web development and websites in the future.
Yeah, I'm wondering what like an augmented reality type of website would even look like. Like you're walking through someone's brick and mortar shop and it's like you're in their website. I don't know what that's going to look like.
I think it could. I think you're even walking down the street and you take a left, you look towards the coffee shop, and it's like, we're out of bagels and we have, these green juices right now. And you're like, oh, that sounds really good. And that's technically what would be part of their website when you think about it.
Super cool. What about voice? What part do you think voice plays in this website future?
It's a tough question. Certain browsers like Safari auto mute any type of volume. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. In fact, they'll stop videos that have volume to them. So if they continue along that path, voice won't have a very big impact because they don't allow people to do it. When it becomes glasses, maybe that changes because maybe you have like the little voice on the side of someone talking in there. But I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really thought too much about the voice aspect of it.
Well, and the reason I think that's important is, I notice working with people just like, my parents or grandparents, whatnot, like it seems like technology is continuously getting better and easier to use, but it's also getting more complicated at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. There's more buttons. You need to know the right ways to go.
It definitely makes sense. We see the younger generations, especially like the TikTok generation, like easily able to manipulate the .com's interface, which is a slightly more technical interface than your Squarespaces or your Wix, right? It's not drag and drop. You're actually editing the site in this cell-based format where I could go in and I could change just the border radius in pixels of a button. But, like to your point, it is getting more easier to look at, but it's actually getting harder to use. But the people they're outpacing their knowledge and the actual difficulty of editing this stuff, because it is really just, again, back to it, it's just data. So once you learn kind of the nomenclature, pixels are just 38px. Okay, that's not really that hard to understand. But when it's all put together, it looks very complicated. But when you can parse it out in this table format, it's much more understandable. Now, when you talk about people who are less technical, that's where we wanted to create this variable system to say, hey, you're less technical. I'm going to give you 2 rows in a Google Sheet to edit. That's all you need to worry about. And so that's kind of why we parsed ours out that way. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm not sure exactly how. I mean, there is a chance that voice with GTP3 and Dolly, there's some cool stuff we're working on internally with those guys, not with those guys, but using those tools where voice could be something that could really advance the speed of development.
One of the things that you brought up, Jeff, I think it's important is that there is some education involved, and, certain demographics, certain psychographics are going to get the education piece more simply. And one of the cool things I'm seeing on your website is it looks like there are resources and, coaching videos, things like that help give the user the proper tools to actually execute a website, right? This is something I think is completely undersold in the market today, is how can I automate the education piece? Could you just go into a little bit more detail on how you're automating education for new users for the.com?
What we're trying to do, we don't automate a ton of the education piece of it yet. And, you still have to, like you said, learn, understand how to connect these things up. But what we're working on right now is the ability for people who are less technical to spin things up much quicker in an automated fashion. And I just think if you don't have the time, or it's not the job that you're actually in, or it's not the dream or the vision that, you're working towards, then to learn how to build a website right now on any platform is going to be a multi-day, if not multi-week process, right? And so we want to give people the initial wow factor to help them automate yourself off the ground, right? Get off the ground with automate. And that's where I think it'll fill in the pieces for people just by answering something like a Google form. And it'll be like, wow, okay, I was able to get this far with just a Google form. Like, how do I jump in? Because when you're looking at it, and again, I know the viewer doesn't know what we're talking about, but in the .com software, you're seeing every single variable in this spreadsheet. So you can click on the screen and you click on the header and the text, and you see the text, you see the color, you see the weight, you see the font, you see the pixel size, you see the letter spacing. All of it is visible right in front of you, which we pride ourselves on showing all the data and saying, like, if it's too complicated, don't worry about it. But most people want to see that data. They're like, oh, letter spacing, that must be the letter spacing. It looks like it says 38 pixels. Like, maybe if I change that to 22, I'll see how that changes. And it's kind of like a little bit learn by doing. And the automated piece is what helps you get to the starting line.
Well, I will say the website is super beautiful, and I would encourage everyone to at least, at the very least, you got to go check out the way that the website looks, the way that it operates and functions. It's very, very clean. Really, really beautiful. So I got to give you props there. It looks really good. And in case you don't have a pen and paper down or you can't remember this, there will be a link below. It's the.com. I don't know how you could forget. It's just the. It's the most common word in the English language, the.com. So Jeff.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, I got to get into the rapid fire question. I got to ask Mr. Jeff McKinnon some rapid fire questions. Jeff, are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Jeff, what is the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Saw 1.
That's classic. What's your favorite place to vacation?
Skiing for sure. Probably Aspen.
Love it. Are you skier or snowboarder?
Skier.
Okay. Nobody's perfect. That's okay.
I do both, but I mainly ski.
That's fair. I will say, I really struggle with the poles for the skiers. On one hand, they look so nice when you're like trying to like shovel your way on your snowboard. But the other hand, there's just more stuff to carry. So I don't know.
It's an hassle for sure. It's definitely not an easy sport to move around in and maneuver in.
No, unless you're going downhill at 60 miles an hour, then it's nothing like it. Jeff, what is an underrated food?
Underrated food. I don't know if this is underrated, but honestly, anything buffalo chicken. It's ridiculous. Being from New England, I love it on everything.
I'll take. Good deal. If you were on a plane ride, you could sit next to anybody. Who'd you want to sit next to?
Whoa. I mean, I don't want to do a token Elon Musk because I feel like you can get some incredible information on what he thinks about the future and Neuralink and all kinds of, I love kind of like learning about space and even theorizing alien type things like that. And I think he would be pretty interesting to talk to about that for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with Elon. He's definitely at the forefront. Final question here. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
I'd probably say go to a 2-year college instead of a 4-year college, because if I could have gotten started a lot earlier, I think I learned everything by doing. And maybe that's just my way of learning, but I definitely would recommend that people get started earlier. Don't waste any time.
I love that. Get started today. The best day was yesterday. The second best is today. And so that's an interesting point, Jeff. And I just want to hold on that for 1 minute. Is there something you think that colleges could do differently to prepare people for entrepreneurship? It just seems like the workforce is very different now than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. Is there anything you'd like to see college do differently?
I mean, I think it would be immensely helpful to really provide people with the ability to work at a real job, whether that's part-time, whether that's you get more credit for it. And I know there's programs out there where they do that, but I don't think it's emphasized enough. I think it's kind of like, go to class, get good grades, that kind of thing. But I would recommend that more real world experience. It's not that hard to get, people need people, especially right now. I mean, workforce is, everyone's begging to hire people, and the colleges can definitely help support that.
Yeah. And the opportunities are just so immense, but you have to be willing to go out there and take it. Get uncomfortable.
Well, it's scary as a college kid. You feel like, I haven't finished college. I don't have a degree yet. Like, no one's going to hire me. I don't know anything. But, the truth is that, like, most of those positions you get even after college, you could easily have gotten after high school.
Yeah.
Because the degree isn't teaching you how to do that job.
Yeah. Super insightful. Jeff McKinnon from the.com, everybody. Jeff, where's the best place for people to link up with you and find out more about what you're working on?
I mean, obviously go to the.com, check it out. You can sign up for free right now. You can check out the editing experience. We have a free version if you're just building a one-off site. If you want to learn about Automate, you can click the big button at the top of the site, or you can go to the.com/automate. And, we have a great Slack community too. We have, I think, like 3,000 or 4,000 people now that are in there participating, helping other people build websites, getting projects. So yeah, reach out to us, DM us on Twitter, and we'll get you hooked up with the Slack community as well.
Love that. Love that. So I have your Twitter handle. I'll put that there. The Slack community, who is it for specifically? Who are the best people for your Slack community?
Mostly web devs, people who are looking to get better at building websites, learning how to build a website, looking for projects to get given, because, a lot of times people automate these things with the .com, and we have all these sites that we need worked on. And so we just have this thing we call gig grabs, and we let our community, first come, first serve on our community getting these great projects.
Cool. Super cool. I could probably go on for hours and hours, but I'm not going to, because Jeff's time is super valuable. Jeff, thanks for joining the show today, brother.
Thanks for having me on. It was great meeting you, Mark.
Well. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Hope you love Jeff. I really enjoyed the episode. I think it's super informative. And by the way, if you haven't yet, definitely check out the website. It's super cool. Super cool. I'm very interested in what Jeff is going to be doing next. Very impressive business. And listen, this is what we do here. We interview after hours entrepreneurs, putting in that after hour hustle time to turn passion into profit. Jeff's doing it. You're doing it. Thanks for listening. If you haven't yet, leave a 5-star review. Go ahead and subscribe. Leave that review. It means a lot. Helps us to reach more people with the show. And in the meantime, do me the biggest favor. Take action. Go ahead and take the action that you need to reach your dreams. Go take the action. I'll catch you here next time on the After Hours Entrepreneur. Peace.